Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
And there you have it. The full-time whistle was just gone. Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0. And on the face of it, yes, it's a loss. People that haven't seen the game might think that actually it was a reasonable, scoreline. Chelsea must have had a few chances. They must have been in the game. But unfortunately, yet again, it was a completely toothless, pathetic, sad state of affairs. And, we've been saying it for a long time now. The fact we've lost 8 games and are still 4th from the table says a lot. So Newcastle have got a game in hand on us. But, yeah, it's just, what you're going to get now. Maresca's not going to change his principles. He's got a team of players that can't play the way he wants to. We're now into the middle of March and nothing has really changed. If anything, it's got a lot worse. So, at this stage, you sort of think to yourself, as a manager, I think you can have your principles and I think you can deploy them when you have the right personnel. I think the best managers are the ones that can adapt. And then, for example, if next season, if these youngsters that we've signed and if Esteban Willian is the player we think he's going to be, if you've got players that can play that way, or you end up going on and buying a centre-back and a goalkeeper that can play the way you want to, you could maybe transform your team. But at the moment, all we're doing is just seeing the same mistakes every single week. Sanchez, again, culpable for all the errors that he makes, and they're the same errors every single week, passing out from the back. He slows the play down massively because he's just so inept at playing with his feet. And then you've got Badiashile, when the ball gets rolled into him, exactly the same. Takes him forever to get the ball out. And he plays in such a casual way, even more casual than Fofana, that he sort of... He doesn't have any rhythm. He passes and he's quite robotic to make a second angle for a pass. And again, slows the play right down. Obviously, not just Arsenal, but any other team that we play against, they come on to us. And the moment they're put under any pressure, they completely crumble. It's just really sad because I'd quite high hope for this Chelsea team to, not to do anything particularly special. But I think if Chelsea had played even half as good as their early season form, they'd probably be third or second even. Because, you think Nottingham Forest are right there. And Forest are playing much better than we are, let's be honest. But it's because they're playing to a style that suits their players. We're playing to a style that doesn't suit our players. And, the moment you saw Cole Palmer's name not on the team sheet, you feared the worst. And I can have a go at Badiashile, I can have a go at Sanchez, all I like, but I kind of know how crap they are. And Nkunku is somebody that you kind of rely on. Okay, here's your moment, mate. You've been waiting all season, no Cole Palmer. What can you do? I'm not even sure if he touched the ball, to be honest. So that says a lot about him, and he obviously got dragged for Dewsbury Hall. I mean, there were some substitutions at the end there, bringing on Tosin, Gusto, Dewsbury Hall. Oh, I forget the other one was now. It's like, what are we doing? Are we going for the win, or are we protecting a 1-0 loss? Because that's the way it felt to me. And there's just so many mistakes in this Chelsea team, and there's so many things you can talk about. But for me, it's just these are the common faults. I think if you can eradicate the faults, you give yourself half a chance. Although Chelsea again today, 1 shot on target, I believe. What Maresca going to say about that, I don't really know. But I don't think you can keep defending 1-0 losses. 1 shot on target or 2 shots in an entire game. I'm sorry, when you spend £1.5 billion on a squad of players, it's just not good enough. And you can argue some of them are young. You can argue that's you're blue in the face. But I'm sorry, it's just piss poor. And I just don't buy into Arteta's had 5 years or, ex-managers had 5 years. Look at Slot at Liverpool. Maresca will point to the fact that Klopp left him a good team and he's got Salah who scores 30 goals a season or whatever. But, Chelsea in reality have got Palmer who could easily score 20, 30 goals a season in the right system and playing the right way. But Slot didn't even buy a player this year. Liverpool didn't even buy a player. And they're walking the league. And to me, it just says a lot where the two teams are. I don't think Liverpool have had to do a lot this year to actually they haven't won the league yet, but I think they're sort of champions in waiting. You know, Arsenal aren't a good team. I watched them today and I thought to myself, pretty poor, really. They really aren't great. They weren't much better than us, but just a little bit more know-how. Look at Man United, how poor they are. Tottenham, how poor they are. The teams that we're looking at are Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford. Maybe not Brentford, but you get my point, is that these aren't household names that we're going up against, and we're struggling to finish in the top four with those sides that are knocking around us. And I think, okay, when you spend the amount of money that we have, to me, it's just not good enough, and I don't think it's acceptable. And spending money doesn't guarantee you anything, by the way. I'm not one of those fans that thinks, oh, okay, we bought a player for 50 million, we must now win the league, because obviously lots of players spend that on a player to try and improve them. But I don't know, there's something hugely missing within this team. And usually it's the thing we've been saying all season long. It's Sanchez costing us many, many points on the season campaign, which he's done, and no character. There's no character in the team whatsoever. Enzo's got a bit of character. Reece has got character. I'm not sure he really has, if I'm honest. He's a good player, but has he got character? I used to think that when he was playing full time at right back and things, when he was flying up and down with Thomas Tuchel, I could see he had character then, you know, bodying players off the ball. But we kicked a few in the first half. In fairness, we gave Arsenal a bit of a roughing up at times. But there's no one on that pitch that leads. You know, you look at players that you go back to like Mark Hughes days and things like Hughesy, like just a bit of a cheap signing from. Did we get to Man United? I can't remember now. But you know, I mean, someone like him just comes in, roughs a few people up, shouts at a few people, tells the youngsters, "You ain't doing it good enough. You're not this. You know, you're playing with Chelsea. You're not doing a good enough job." Someone who's won everything, you know, and demands a lot of himself. You know, we had Olivier Giroud for years, who, you know, some people would say he should have played more games than he did. But we might have had better players than him in terms of goal scoring. But what Giroud does, he brings everybody into the game. And for me, we don't have a player like that in our squad at all. It's just rinse and repeat the same way, pass backwards and sideways, no forward runs, really no kind of forward progressive passes, quite dour. Even at the end there, when we're going for a goal, we're passing along at the back. We had I counted at one point, we had 10 to 12 passes from Cucurella, Caicedo, Enzo, Tosin, that little bit when the substitutions have been made. So we should be going for a goal. We went tap, 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 tap all round at the back, went nowhere, and lost the ball on the halfway line, and Arsenal broke on us. And I thought, what is Maresca teaching them? You know, yes, they've had European football this year, but they've basically got enough players to have two squads. So what's the message? What's not getting through that he wants to, you know, by now we should at least, even if they're not winning games, if they're losing games by playing a certain way, and it hasn't always got to be exciting, but there's got to be a purpose. There's no purpose to our play. It's just passing for passing's sake. And in my opinion, it's just not good enough. It's so far from not good enough. You have to start questioning what we're doing, because this happens every single week. It's another game, and it's another top, you know, so-called top 4, top 6 team that we've lost again. We can't even draw these games. You know, we got a result against Man United last year, 4-3 at home, but Man United are an absolute shambles. And we've beaten Spurs this year, who we just found out again, who are an absolute shambles. You can argue the Man United one because they are a massive club, but I don't really class Spurs as being a top 6 team personally. And I don't, you know, we beat Spurs all the time, although I think we've got them next, which is going to be a real worry for me, because at the moment, I just don't know where we're going to get our next win from in terms of like big win, like beating Southampton and Leicester the way we did wasn't really impressive to me, and I think that's shown today. No fight, no guile, no plan B, no plan C, no mixing it up. You look at the way Liverpool play short and then they play long. We just played the same short 5-yard passes all the time. And at the start of the season, at least, like, you remember the goal that we scored against Wolves, for where Sanchez boots the ball 70 yards downfield, a flick on from Jackson, and Palmer lobbed the goalkeeper. There's nothing wrong with playing that way. Like, not saying all the time, but you have to mix your play up. An under 10s manager will tell you have to mix your play up. Otherwise, everybody knows what you're going to do. And, you know, this is the Premier League level. And whoever we come up against now knows exactly what Maresca's going to do. They know it. They know we're going to. They'll even realise there's so much footage on these things. They'll realise which players are going to pass back to Sanchez, and once the ball starts going to Sanchez, they'll ever be saying, "Wait for him to pass it out because he's going to make a mistake." You've only got to get one person coming from the left-hand side, and he'll panic and pass to the right-hand side. It'll be a bobbly old pass to somebody. He won't get to his mark, and we'll win a throw in high up the pitch, or we'll win a corner, or we'll win a free kick or something. Teams know what we're going to do, and it's just really, to me, I'm just quite embarrassed by it. Just a really, really, really poor Chelsea team, and I still, again, we sit there and we'll say we're fourth, but we lost 8 matches now. We can barely score a goal these days. The Copenhagen game midweek was absolutely atrocious. I mean, one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. I sat there with my son and we watched it together, and we were just like bored out of our brain. Ended up going to bed because he was just so bored watching it. He was like, "Well, I can't be bothered. Let's go to bed, Dad." That's what we've come to. No excitement. If this is modern football, mate, I don't want to be a part of it because it's complete shit at the moment. I don't know where we go from here really, because I think Brentford beat us, and that's my prediction. Brentford will beat us because they play a very gung-ho style of football. Spurs, who knows, because they're pretty shit like us, and they actually can't defend either. But Spurs, you never know. But Brentford beat us to me, and I can't imagine us finishing in the top 4 at this rate. I just can't see it. And if we do, it'd be a miracle, and we probably don't deserve it, quite frankly. But mate, I'll let you go. You can pick the bones out of it. I'm disappointed, but I'm kind of at the point now where I expect to be disappointed. So yeah, I'll think about it more tomorrow, I'm sure. But at the moment, just very deflated, very flat. Maresca for me is a dead man walking, but I can't see him sacking him because of the European campaign, quite frankly. I think they'll want to win that trophy, and they'll probably think he's going to give us the best chance to do that. Although, to be fair, I think I could probably manage the team to a European trophy in that calibre of football. So, but anyway, over to you, Chris, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Big game blues once again, isn't it? We just do not turn up in these big games, and it's been going on for far too long, isn't it? As you know, Joe, I wasn't able to watch the game. I think it's the first Premier League game I've not been able to watch all season. Family, away day myself down on the coast, so didn't get to catch the game and was gutted beforehand, thinking I'm going to miss it, but it turns out that probably did quite well to miss that one. Watched the highlights since, and there weren't many of them. But with that in mind, we thought we'd bring in a guest to give his view on the game, and we are delighted to welcome back Owen Phillips, who is a journalist and big Chelsea fan, for his thoughts on the game and on a couple of other interesting issues too. So thanks again for being part of the show, Owen, and over to you.
All right, Joe, Chris, hope you're both well. Jerry doesn't sound like you're that well after that. Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Straight away after the game, I've had a couple of hours and a couple of pints, so I'm feeling a little bit more measured and relaxed now. And I think your voice notes summed it up pretty damn well, really. I wasn't really expecting us to get anything from it. In fact, I probably thought we were better than I thought we'd be, which is worrying in itself, maybe. But that game today, it was frustrating in lots of ways, wasn't it? Yeah, we just didn't really go for it, did we? We sort of hang back a little bit. We're tentative. Having played them earlier in the season, 1-1 game at the Bridge, like when we went for it and we took a few chances, I thought we looked all right, we looked decent. We suddenly started playing without fear, and I think it just gives them something to think about. I don't think we were completely on the back foot, but we just haven't got that belief and confidence, probably because of the run we're on. But they're not that special. The fact is, and this is something you touched on, I think it's really important to remember, like, if we'd have won today, we'd have been 3 points off them. I mean, 3 points. That's scandalous considering how bad we've been for about 3 months. It's just absolutely ludicrous. It's the narrative, isn't it? The narrative is Chelsea have been awful. Chelsea have been dreadful. Had a really poor season, carried by Cole Palmer, and Arsenal, so close. That said, back to the game itself, like, as I say, if you don't go for it, if you don't set the standards, you don't set the tone, you don't worry the opposition, and you're a little bit tentative to start with on the back foot and accepting, maybe we've got to play this certain way because they're a bit better than us, you just send all the wrong signals, I didn't think it was completely like that. And I do actually think tactically we needed to be a bit more sensible in our approach, not be gung-ho. And as soon as you went 1-0 down, that was probably even more the case, because if we'd have gone 2, then it's definitely game over. But I think second half, it was a matter of easing ourselves back into the game, get through his half time, easing ourselves back into the game second half, the way the game turned out, and then really going for it the last 25 minutes or so. And I'd always much prefer to see Chelsea go for it and in the last 20, 25, 30, whatever, lose 2-0 and, you know, having said, oh, we missed some chances, we created a few chances, we took a few chances at the back, but yeah, we didn't really do that. And I think until the end, where it was all a bit stretched and that we were all a bit random in our approach and lots of changes, but a little bit more pace and movement and around up front, it did give me some sort of hope that we might sneak one, but yeah, it wasn't meant to be. We hardly created anything, did we? So I don't think we can have too many complaints, but I'm not completely distraught at the way we played. I just think we're just lacking that belief, and that's because of that abysmal run. I thought Reece James is about half the player he was at the moment. I do think there's still a great player to come back in, but that marauding right back's gone, and that's not going to happen. So personally, I think he's a world-class centre-half. I think he's the player that we could probably do with. I think you need to say to him, your midfield, is he better than Lavia in the holding midfield role? No. Is he better than Casado? No. So you're playing him and you're crowbarring him in because he needs to be in the team. But centre-half, what are we crying out for? A ball-playing centre-half who's strong, good in the air. He can bring the ball out. He's just perfect. He's got to be, to my mind. He can play on the right, Gusto as a right winger. He'll settle. Reece James will turn into the player we know he was, but he's not the player that we know he can be, but not the same sort of player as in that attacking right back. His injuries have already taken their toll a little bit. He's lost a yard of pace. He can still be a great player, but you've got to make the best use of him, you know, and trying to put him as a holding midfielder. Given we've spent £3 zillion on a couple of holding midfielders, why would you reinvent him there when he's got all the attributes to play centre-half, and we're crying out for a centre-half that can use the ball, can play. You know, John Terry started as a central midfielder. I used to go and cover the reserves for the programme, and I saw him make his debut when he was 15. He come off the bench and played. He was 15, and he came in and he showed no fear. We were 3-0 down to 10 men, and he came on and just took the game by the scruff of the neck. I remember it vividly. So I come away going, bloody hell, there's a player there. And that was, as a central midfielder. He then moved back, played centre-half, but his quality as a player defensively, you know, was often overlooked. Sorry, as a ball playing centre half was often overlooked because he was so bloody good on the ball. Sorry, I'll say that again. His quality as a ball playing centre half was often overlooked so much because he was such a good, brave, solid defender, you know. So he was world class in that, but actually his passing was probably better. People rave about Ferdinand. John Terry's range of passing and ability to see a ball and was much better than Ferdinand's. All right, he didn't bring the ball out in the same way as Ferdinand, didn't have the tricks, but geez, he was better on the ball than Ferdinand by a country mile as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's just frustrating that we don't show that ability to adapt when we can. Just be interesting to see now. It's very much make or break, isn't it? But you know, we've still got some great young players, and there is that narrative of just giving them a bit of time and trusting in the process a little bit, and that's a big cliche, isn't it? The modern sport cliche, trust in the process. But I think that has to be that. Otherwise, what happens? We sack Maresca, we start again next season, we go through this, we get another manager comes in, starts saying stuff like, I was rebuilding, we're doing this. Well, Maresca's got some time there. I'd still give him a season, unless we're bottom of the table with no wins from 5 and playing terribly. Then you know, you give him a reasonable start. You see what he can build. You see what he can do over the summer. You see what recruitment what happens there. Get rid of 1 or 2 off the books. He has sorted out a few of the issues that were obvious to us. It's taking him longer. I mean, Disassi is gone, you know, and I think, well, You know, that was obvious to a blind man, but we've got to give him some time. Otherwise, we are back to square one again. You know, we just can't keep going down the same route. You know. Anyway, keep up the good work. Speak soon.
Yes, it's a funny place that Chelsea are at right now, isn't it? In the season, we've basically got about nearly 3 weeks without a game. It's the best part of 2.5 weeks before we play Spurs, which is crazy. Perhaps comes at the perfect time for us in terms of the squad trying to get players back. Maresca said after the game against Arsenal that he hopes to have Jackson and Madueke back for that Spurs game. And let's be honest, I mean, that would be just huge for us at this point, wouldn't it? And obviously, as I record this on Monday morning, just all eyes on that Cole Palmer scan, because if hopefully it comes back with minimal, nothing, then all good. If it's a bad one, and you just never know with these things, then it could be a little bit season defining for us at this point. But let's hope it goes well, and then we are then going into that run-in at the end of the season pretty much full strength, which has been the first time we've been able to say that since really before Christmas, when Lavia was the first to go down with Owen Fofana. So, you know, massive now 9 games left of the season. And the question I would like to pose is, how do we feel about Maresca? Owen obviously gave his views on him there. And Joe, I'd love to get your thoughts. I'm going to go first with my thoughts on him. And I am properly in the middle of the scale, I think, in terms of the balance right now. Before Christmas, obviously, we were all, lauding him. But I think it wasn't just the football. It was the personality we were seeing, the way he was speaking. He was carrying himself with, there was a lot to like about him, wasn't there? And actually, over the last few months, he started chipping away at the fans a little bit, which I don't think is ever a great move. Some of the stuff he's been saying, which just feels so stubborn, doesn't it? About, I think it was that if Enzo Fernandez doesn't pass backwards, then he'll be taken out the team. If Sanchez doesn't play short, then he'll be taken out the team. And it's actually the last thing that fans want to hear. What you want to hear is a pragmatism. And like we have a style of play, but of course we've got to adjust to the game state and all those kind of things. And I think that worries me. And it's obviously the stuff that worried you before he joined, the stuff that we'd heard from Leicester fans. And, the parallels of the 2 seasons are kind of crazy, really, where both teams were brilliant up until Christmas and really faded. And the style of football became just really painful. And I think that's the problem, is that when it's not great, and it hasn't been great for a little while, the football is pretty awful. And I don't think Chelsea fans are unique in this, but I think Chelsea fans are particularly against this sort of style of play. And maybe that's because of the culture we've had in the last 20 odd years where, it's this bombastic style of play with big physical players and, just a different way of winning. And we've almost taken pride in that against the likes of a Man City, whereas we would, win in a very different way. And I think it's quite a difficult adjustment for us. It never really worked under Sarri. And if you look back at that Sarri season, I mean, I was not a big fan of him. But you look at the season, we finished third and won the Europa League with a brilliant display against Arsenal, ironically. And you look back at the season and think, well, it's actually not a bad season, really. But Chelsea fans never got on side with him, never got on side with the football. And as a result, it was sort of doomed to fail, really, whatever happened. And I kind of feel there is a danger that Maresca is going down a similar path. And whatever happens, we're only one sort of bad result, bad performance away from fans calling for his head. And the reason I thought it was an interesting topic is I just get that sentiment at the moment along fans, whether that's on people I chat to, whether it's WhatsApp groups or obviously on social media, that there is quite a big element now of, calling for a Maresca change in the summer. Where do I stand then? So, honestly, I said I'm in the middle of the balance somewhere. I actually think my decision rests on the end of this season and where we end up, because with 9 games to go, if he can get us through those games where there are some big games among them as well. We've got to go to Newcastle, we've got to go to Forest, we've got Liverpool and Spurs coming to the Bridge, among others. It's not an easy run. If we can get through that fixture list, get top 5, get back in the Champions League and win the Conference League, and I think you're one of them, Joe. I know a lot of people aren't that interested in the Conference League. Do you know what? Actually, it's a trophy, and this club just needs another trophy right now, and this group of players needs a trophy. So I think on the night of that final, if we're there, you kind of don't care what the trophy is, you just want to win it. I remember winning the Super Cup when Kepa made those saves, and as soon as you're in the game, you are desperate to win it, and the joy is real. So I think if we can do that, absolutely keep him, give him another season. Let's see how he progresses in season 2. If, which I fear, we end up falling out the top 5 and don't get Champions League, then I think that is a failing that has to be on his shoulders in what might be one of the weakest Premier Leagues in a number of years, and I would be making a change at that point. I just don't think it's forgivable with the squad that we've got, with the state of the teams around us, really, where you've got Man City having their worst season in years, Man United and Spurs just not part of the conversation, etc. I just think it would be unforgivable, and I would be making a change based on that. So it's a massive end of the season for him. In terms of where the Premier League's going to end up, I have quite a strong feeling it's going to be between us and Newcastle for 5th. I think Forest are just too far ahead. They've got a little cushion, best part of 6 points, and the way they're playing, I think they'll be fine. I think they can get over the line, and it will end up maybe even 3rd. I think Man City, as bad as they've been, have just got too much quality. I just think they'll win more games than us in the run, and I think they'll end up 3rd or 4th, and therefore it's then who can get 5th. And what is in our favour is basically all of those teams around us who you thought might be a potential threat, whether that's a Brighton or a Villa even, they're as inconsistent as us. So I think Newcastle are the ones who are probably the biggest threat, and of course with them winning the League Cup yesterday, it'll be interesting to see how they react to that, really. I think it can go one of two ways. Either you've got a little bit the morning after Lord Mayor's show, and their season sort of whimpers out a little bit because they're all just partying and enjoying the trophy win, or it has the opposite effects and galvanises, and the crowd will be absolutely roaring them on after that. And then do they put a really good run to the end of the season together and end up pipping us to 5th, which is if I'm honest, my slightly concern, particularly as we have to go to Newcastle and we don't have a good record there at the best of times, let alone in what could be a kind of Champions League knockout game. So yeah, it's a huge run. I'll end with a positive, which is that back to that injury list. If everyone is fit, we suddenly have the same squad again that we had in that amazing run before the start of the season. And you only look at the attack yesterday and go, if you could put, how different do we look if you have Cole Palmer, Madueke and Jackson all on the pitch, and Lavia? All of these players suddenly takes you up, a significant level, and they could all be back for this run-in. But it's massive for Maresca, in my view.
Does anyone remember when we lost 1-0 to Man City under Antonio Conte, and basically we played in our own half? We never attempted to attack. Nobody tried to go for a win or a draw or a leveller. Well, that just gave me those vibes yesterday. It gave me, it's okay, we only lost 1-0. That's the sort of script you're getting. The fact we didn't lose 3-0 or 4-0. And nobody wants to go to a team, by the way, and lose 3 and 4-0 and get battered, of course. I understand that. There are times when you have to batten down the hatches and say, okay, we'll play for a point. 0-0, 1-0, get behind the ball, we'll try for it. But to lose 1-0 still means you fucking lose. And my biggest gripe with Maresca is that it's almost like he goes to us. He's trying to hoodwink us into thinking that 1-0 against Arsenal was not a bad result. It is a bad result. You lost. End of story, okay? That's not big club mentality. That's small club mentality. That's what really pisses me off with him. It's like, Oh, it wasn't too bad, was it? You know, it was only 1-0. And I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. Passing the ball aimlessly across the back and then using players in a system that can't use his system or his so-called system of you know, playing out from the back. They can't do it. I mentioned that in my first voice note earlier on. So to try and sort of make us believe that things are going to change in the next 9 games, I just don't see it. I see it. I'll give you an example, you know, or a scenario. If Chelsea lose 5 of the next 9 games, they would have lost 13 games this season out of 38 with a squad that's, you know, busting at the seams, full of players, in some cases too many players, of a cost of about 1.5 billion. There has to be questions. There's more answers than questions, isn't there? More questions than answers, I should say. You're constantly scratching your head thinking, I don't know what I'm seeing. I've said many, many times, I'm never happy for Chelsea to lose. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But there has to be something in the performance yesterday that makes me believe that I can cling on to something next week against Tottenham. Well, not next week, but our next game against Tottenham and Brentford, and think, actually, yeah, I think we can go and get a result against them. But at the moment, I don't. We don't attack in numbers. It's pedestrian. It's kick it around at the back. And when that doesn't work, we sort of slowly move the ball into midfield and we pass it around in midfield for ages before eventually going back to the goalkeeper or back to the defenders, who then basically try and play a ball into, at the moment, Neto's feet, miss his feet, go straight to the goalkeeper, Arsenal get the ball for 5 minutes, and the cycle continues. And it's just like, there has to be more. You're you're not an experienced manager, but you're supposedly an elite level manager managing an elite level team. And the best you could come up with yesterday was your left back having a shot at goal in the first half, sort of a half volley, which Raya made a complete pig's ear of. Normally, he'd have just picked it up and no one would have even questioned it, but Raya fumbled it and obviously it nearly went in. But that was your entire game plan. That was it. There was nothing. I mean, I watched the second half just silently, no passion. I wasn't exasperated. I wasn't getting out of my chair. I wasn't even getting angry, because I'm just thinking to myself, I've seen this so many times. The players seem to have bought into the fact that you can't seem to make a mistake by being progressive. So what they do, they keep the ball and go backwards. It's like, well, I won't get in trouble. If I keep possession and go backwards, I won't get in trouble. But if I try and play a forward pass and it misses its target, then the manager might drop me next week, or he'll, in the changing room, he'll be giving me, he'll be berating me for playing a forward pass that didn't make its target. It's like, football is a forward-thinking game. Yes, there's defenders in it, and yes, you need to defend your goal, of course. I was a defender myself. I fully understand the rules of the game and what happens, but this is bullshit. You cannot hoodwink us into thinking that this is all right, because it isn't. I mean, there was a joke, one of our WhatsApp groups, our friend Dave, he won't mind me saying, obviously he sort of said it tongue in cheek, but he said, I would have preferred to be gone there and got beat 5-0, but had a go. Clearly, no one wants to get beat 5-0, and Dave doesn't really mean that, I know, but the sentiment is true. It's like, there's nothing to cling on to. Just staying in a game is all right in isolation on a 1 week basis. We didn't play very well today, but it's 0-0. Let's stay in the game. Can we get a point? That's okay. But when you're losing already, you're going to stay in a game that you're already losing. The logic in that is mental. It's actually insane. And I think that I'm not saying that I want to see Maresca even sacked, but there has to be a change in his philosophy. Until you have got players that you think you can take your system to and explain it to them and they get it, then maybe. But at the moment, these players don't get what he's asking them to do. I don't see on the field what he's asking them to do. I cannot fathom what we're trying to do. It's not exciting. It's dull as anything. And do you know what? In some cases, football doesn't need to be really, really exciting. If you're playing winning football, but there's an actual strategic plan behind it, but there doesn't seem to be a plan. It just seems to be slow and ponderous until we give the ball away, give it back to the other team. They have the ball for a while. They create some exciting chances against us. Sanchez or Jorgensen or whatever have to make a brilliant save. And there's a round of corners. Eventually we get the ball back Sanchez gets it, passes it to Badiashile, passes it back to Sanchez, he passes to Colwell, passes it back to Sanchez, passes to Gusto, passes back to Sanchez. It's like, fuck off, man. Don't try and con me into thinking this is good football. It's dreadful. I don't care if you have 600 passes or 300 passes. We played Brighton recently. We had 600 passes. They had, I think, 220 or something, and beat us 3-0. Tell me who was the happy at the end of that game? Passing the ball around for the big teams is obviously they want to keep possession, but it doesn't. Just because you keep possession doesn't mean you have to be a fully possession-based team. And that's where I'm getting really angry with it. I'm getting cross with the fact that he's trying to con us into thinking that what is happening is okay. It's not okay. You must have one game plan up your sleeve, and the coaches that are with him are probably either too scared to say anything, or for fear of losing their job or something. Because it's like this one way only. The owners don't know what you're doing. The owners don't really know about football. They're not football geniuses from the past. They've come from America playing different sports. All they care about is you winning football matches. And at the moment, we are okay. I keep saying we haven't won. We've beaten one of the two worst teams in the league, in Leicester and Southampton, and one of them was really unconvincing, by the way. It could have been 0-0 easily. So, yeah, to me, how do I feel about Maresca? I feel like you've got all the tools at your disposal. You've got a fantastic training ground, a fantastic training facility. You've got a brilliant team of players who would probably do a lot more for you if you gave them the opportunity to by changing your system ever so slightly until you get the right players in place that you feel are good enough. Obviously, with Chelsea buying more youngsters this past week, the two young lads that are coming in, whether they're going to come and stay next season or if they're going on loan, I don't know. But there's a couple of there that are very, very good. But again, they're 17. I mean, are we really going to put Esteban Willian and these? I forget the names off the top of my head, but these two youngsters in the team alongside some of the other players. We're going to have a team of 17 and 19-year-olds. I mean, it's just stupid. It's just ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, if there's players to be bought that are actually genuinely brilliant players, and they are very, very young, I get it. Get them before somebody else does. Fine. I understand that. I understand what Chelsea are trying to do. But there's no balance in that team. And when the balance goes, everything goes. And if you can't win games of football, you're just going to keep plummeting down the league. And Chris, obviously, your point about winning the Europa Conference League, it's fine. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Win a trophy, whatever. The club needs a trophy. Yeah, yes, it does. I agree with that. But if Chelsea get the Conference League again next season, if they win the trophy, they won't be anyway. They'll be in the Europa League. But if we for some reason, happen to be in that competition again next season, who's going to be up for that? It's absolutely awful. That's on UEFA, by the way. I think it's a dreadful decision to add this third competition in, and it's absolutely rubbish. But for me, Chelsea feel like they're becoming a very mid-table team, a very mid-level team. It's really disappointing, and I don't want to feel that way. I think if you spend no money and you've got a training complex that is falling down and your stadium's crap and you've got no investment in the team, you can understand why you dropped down the league. But we don't have that excuse. We've got an elite level training ground. We've got a fantastic fucking ground. We've got a brilliant team. We've got money to throw at anything. And obviously resources to do whatever we want to, and yet we're still putting out this same shit performance every single week. Watch the Brighton game, watch the Wolves game, watch the Bournemouth game, watch any game you want to see. They're all exactly the same. It's plan A, and that's it. And it's slow, methodical, gutless football, no soul, no passion, and it's really driving me mad. I mean, again, I don't want to see Maresca sacked because I don't want to see Chelsea keep going through managers. I don't want to keep seeing us change the manager all the fucking time. Why we can't seem to nail a manager down and give him the tools to do the best thing and stay in the job and just deliver, not even trophies so much straight off the bat, but if you put a competitive team together so they can believe next year they can go and actually do it, that's what I want to see. But I feel as though the fact that we're going to finish potentially 5th or 6th this season, some people would say that's what I expected, but it's as you rightly say, Chris, it's the worst Premier League season I can remember in a long, long time, maybe the worst ever. It's rubbish. Considering the amount of investment that's in the league now, it's been a really poor standard. And yeah, I'm basically disappointed with the way we're playing it and what I'm seeing on the field. And the 2.5 week break might do me some good, because I'm just not seeing anything that I really enjoy at the moment, and it's sucking the soul out of me. And I'm sitting there yesterday thinking, in a stupid way, do I want Chelsea to even get back into this game? Because part of you thinks, I can't keep watching this shit over and over and over again. Is it worth taking the pain and losing a few more games and getting this geezer out of the club, or is that what I really want? And of course, it's not what I really want. I want Chelsea to equalise and get back into the game. But you have these thoughts. You think, I can't keep watching this crap. Again, I go back to my kids watching it, thinking with me, going, oh, Dad, what's happening here? Why is he doing that? What's up? I don't know, mate. I really don't know what we're trying to achieve. Yeah, just really disappointing. Hopefully, there's some change over the international break. Again, injuries. I think everyone's got injuries. I think we can use that as an excuse. We've got plenty of players to cover these positions. That's why we've got a squad of 85. But yeah, for me, I just think that we need to do a lot more, and the manager needs to do a lot more, because at the moment you're losing us, and I think we all bought into you quite early on. So I think maybe now's the time you've just got to sort of maybe throw your principles out the windows to some degree. Keep some of them, but you have to sort of change your way of playing and get some results, because it's a results-based business at the end of the day. And if you're going to finish 6th and 7th every season, then don't bother coming. You're not for Chelsea. So let's hope he can change his ways and actually give us a bit of something to get behind.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.